The dining room smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon candles, but my chest felt tight the moment I stepped inside. Everyone was already seated. Laughter filled the room, loud and easy, the kind that made you feel like you were late to something important. I scanned the table and realized there was no place for me. My aunt looked up first. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Oh," she said, glancing at the full table, "we didn't think you'd mind sitting over there." She pointed to the small table near the kitchen. "The kids' table." I laughed once, confused. "I'm 30. My cousin didn't even look embarrassed. "This table is for family," she said. "You know, people who actually contribute." The room went quiet for half a second. Not uncomfortable, just observant. Someone slid a chair out for me at the kids' table. Crayons were still scattered across it. I felt my face burn, but I walked over and sat down anyway. That's when I realized something. They weren't joking, and they had no idea what was coming next. From the kids' table, I could see everything. The adults passed dishes over my head without looking at me. Someone joked about property taxes. Someone else complained about money. I listened quietly, chewing food I didn't taste. My younger cousin leaned toward me and whispered, "Why are you sitting here?" I smiled. "Temporary seating," I said. Across the room, my uncle raised his glass. "Let's all remember," he said loudly, "this house stays standing because some of us actually put money into it." Several people nodded. A few glanced at me. I had lived here once. Paid rent. Covered bills when things were tight. But those details never survived family storytelling. I noticed a thick envelope on the sideboard near the fireplace. It hadn't been there earlier. My aunt kept glancing at it like it might move on its own. I didn't know why, but my stomach twisted. Something important was inside that envelope. And I was suddenly very sure my name was involved. After dinner, dessert plates came out. I stayed seated at the kids' table, my back straight, my hands folded. Leaving would have proven their point. My aunt stood and tapped her glass. "Before we eat," she said, "there's something we should share as a family." She reached for the envelope. My heart started pounding. "This is about the house," she continued. "And the future. We think it's time to be clear about who carries the responsibility here." She unfolded a document. I recognized it immediately. It was not new. It was not casual. And it was not what they thought it was. I felt my breath slow instead of speed up. Because suddenly, I understood. They had invited me here thinking I would feel small. They had no idea they were about to read the truth out loud. My aunt cleared her throat and began reading. At first, it sounded harmless. Legal language. Dates. Names. Then she paused. "That's strange," she muttered, scanning the page again. My uncle leaned over her shoulder. "What?" She read the next line more slowly. The room shifted. Faces changed. Forks stopped moving. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. She continued reading. The document explained who paid what. Who covered the mortgage when others couldn't. Who stepped in quietly, repeatedly, without asking for credit. My name was mentioned again. And again. I felt every eye turn toward me. From the kids' table. My aunt stopped reading completely. "That can't be right," she said. I stood up. "It is," I said calmly. "I didn't think you'd want to talk about it tonight. But since we are." My uncle's face went pale. My cousin looked confused. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. I walked toward the main table. "No," my aunt said sharply. "That table is for family," I finished. I placed my hand on the back of an empty chair. "And I've been holding this family up for years." No one laughed. No one interrupted. And for the first time that night, I wasn't the one being moved aside. Here we go. Things start cracking now. Silence pressed down on the room like weight. My aunt slowly folded the document and held it against her chest, as if that might erase what she had just read. "This is misleading," she said. "Out of context." "It's a payment record," I replied. "There's no context to add." My uncle stood up. "You're saying you paid the mortgage?" I'm saying I covered it when no one else could, I said. More than once. My cousin scoffed. Then why didn't we know? I met her eyes. You didn't ask. That answer landed harder than I expected. People shifted in their seats. My mother finally spoke. Why wouldn't you tell us? I didn't raise my voice. Every time I tried, I was reminded where I belonged. I glanced back at the kids' table. No one argued. The energy changed after that. Plates sat untouched. Dessert melted. Conversations broke into whispers. My aunt kept rereading the document like it might rearrange itself. My uncle cleared his throat. If this is true, he said, then things were misunderstood. Misunderstood? I asked. Or ignored? That word did it. My cousin snapped. You could have spoken up. I smiled sadly. I did. Just not loudly enough for people who weren't listening. My mother stood up then, gripping the back of her chair. Why would you humiliate us like this? I didn't answer right away. You humiliated yourself, I said finally. I just stopped protecting the story. Her face crumpled. And I realized something painful. They weren't angry I'd paid. They were angry everyone now knew. My uncle tried to regain control. This changes nothing, he said firmly. The house is still ours. I nodded. Of course. I never claimed ownership. Relief flickered across his face too fast. But, I added, the agreement states repayment when the property is refinanced or sold. The room froze. My aunt's voice shook. Repayment? Yes, I said. With documentation. Dates. Signatures. My cousin laughed nervously. You're joking. I reached into my bag and pulled out a copy. I brought it tonight in case this came up. No one touched it. They all stared at the paper like it might bite. For the first time, I saw fear. Real fear. My mother sat back down slowly. Why tonight? She asked quietly. I looked around the table. Because tonight you told me I wasn't family. No one spoke. I didn't come here to collect anything, I continued. I came because I thought we could finally be honest. My aunt shook her head. This feels planned. It wasn't, I said. But the disrespect was. That landed. My cousin stood up abruptly. This is unbelievable, she said, grabbing her coat. You always act like a victim. I watched her walk out. The door slammed. And suddenly, the house didn't feel so full. The evening ended quietly. People avoided my eyes. Some offered stiff apologies. Others said nothing at all. No one asked me to move back to the kids' table. I gathered my coat last. My mother followed me into the hallway. You could have handled this differently, she said. I paused, hand on the door. I did. For years. She had no answer. As I stepped outside, cold air filled my lungs. I felt lighter than I had in a long time. Behind me, through the window, I saw my aunt holding the document again. Reading it. Understanding it. And I knew this wasn't over. Because once people lose control of a story, they don't let go quietly. The calls started the next morning. My aunt left a voicemail saying we needed to clear the air. My uncle texted asking if we could talk like adults. My cousin sent nothing. I didn't respond right away. By afternoon, my mother called. Your aunt is very upset, she said carefully. I imagine she is, I replied. She feels blindsided. I stared at the wall. I felt erased. There was a long pause. You know that's not the same thing. It is when it lasts years, I said. That evening, another message came through. This one sounded different. Let's meet, my aunt wrote. We can fix this. Fix. That word always meant one thing in our family. Make it quiet again. We met at the house 2 days later. The dining table was cleared. No kids' table this time. My aunt gestured for me to sit where she usually did. I didn't. I chose a chair halfway down the table. Neutral ground. We didn't realize how much you'd done, my uncle began. We assumed. You assumed I didn't matter, I said. My aunt winced. That's not fair. I looked at her. Then explain why I was sent to the kids' table. No one answered. She slid an envelope toward me. We thought maybe this would help. I didn't open it. What is it? I asked. A gesture, she said. I finally opened it. A check. It wasn't even close to what I was owed. I'm not accepting this, I said, pushing it back. My aunt's face tightened. You should be grateful. For what? I asked. Being partially acknowledged. My uncle leaned forward. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I nodded slowly. That's what you said when I asked for credit. When I asked for respect. When I asked for a seat. My mother spoke then, her voice small. What do you want? I thought about it. I want the truth to stay true, I said. Even when it's uncomfortable. My aunt shook her head. Families don't survive like that. I stood. Families don't survive pretending either. I left the check on the table. The tone changed after that. No more apologies. Just pressure. My cousin finally called. You're tearing everyone apart, she snapped. I didn't start this, I said. But you're enjoying it. That hurt more than I expected. I enjoyed being invisible less, I replied. She hung up on me. Later that night, my uncle emailed. He attached revised documents. New terms. Softer language. Still careful not to admit fault. I read it once. Then closed my laptop. They weren't trying to fix the damage. They were trying to contain it. A week passed. Then 2. No calls. No messages. Until one afternoon, my mother showed up at my door. She looked tired. Smaller. They're talking about selling the house, she said quietly. I felt my chest tighten. Why? They need to repay you. There it was. The truth they'd been avoiding. She looked at me. Is that what you want? I thought about the kids' table. The laughter. The silence. I want accountability, I said. She nodded slowly. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes too. Because now, the cost of pretending was finally real. The house went on the market quietly. No announcement. No family meeting. Just a listing that appeared online one morning, priced higher than expected. My aunt didn't tell me. I found out from a neighbor who texted, didn't know they were selling. When I called my mother, she sounded strained. It's temporary, she said. Just until things calm down. They won't, I replied. She didn't argue. That evening, my uncle emailed again. Short. Direct. He asked if I would consider adjusting expectations to avoid further disruption. I reread that sentence 3 times. They were still calling accountability disruption. I typed one line back. I'm not adjusting the truth. The cracks widened fast. My cousin stopped speaking to my aunt. My uncle blamed my mother for letting things get out of hand. Arguments spilled into group texts, then into silence. One night, my aunt called me herself. Her voice shook. Do you know what this is doing to us? I kept my voice steady. I know what it did to me. She exhaled sharply. You always took things too personally. That old line. I took responsibility personally, I said. You just didn't like that it came with records. She hung up. I sat there afterward, hands trembling, realizing something painful. They weren't losing the house. They were losing the version of themselves they liked. The appraisal came back lower than they hoped. Very lower. My uncle called, furious. If you'd stayed quiet, we wouldn't be here. That's not true, I said. You'd still be here. I'd just still be invisible. He snapped, you think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I deserved honesty then. Just like you want it now. He didn't reply. A week later, a lawyer contacted me. Not hostile. Careful. They wanted to finalize repayment terms. For the first time, it wasn't emotional. It was real. When we met, everything was documented. No raised voices. No accusations. Just numbers and signatures. My aunt wouldn't look at me. My cousin didn't attend. My mother sat quietly, hands folded, eyes wet. At the end, the lawyer slid the final page across the table. "This resolves the matter," he said. I signed. So did they. As we stood to leave, my aunt finally spoke. "I hope this was worth it." I met her eyes. "I hope the truth lasts longer than your resentment." She flinched. That wasn't revenge. That was clarity. The sale closed 2 weeks later. They downsized. Moved quietly. The family gatherings stopped. No more holidays together. Strangely, I didn't feel loss. I felt peace. One afternoon, my mother came by again. She looked around my apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "You seem lighter," she said. "I am," I replied. She nodded. "I should have protected you." I swallowed hard. "It mattered," I said. As she left, I understood something fully. The hardest part wasn't being humiliated. It was realizing how much silence costs. And the bill always comes due. The first holiday without the house felt strange. No group messages. No seating plans. No forced smiles. I spent the day quietly, cooking a small meal for myself. Halfway through the afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from my cousin. "I didn't know," it read. "About everything." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Now you do," I wrote back. A few minutes later, another message appeared. "I'm sorry for how I treated you. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was the one reaching across the gap." Months passed. Life settled into something steady. Predictable. Then one afternoon, I received an email from the lawyer. Follow-up confirmation. Everything finalized. No loose ends. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of it lift fully. That night I thought about the kids' table. How small it made me feel. How easy it was for them to decide where I belonged. I understood now that humiliation only works when you accept the seat they give you. I hadn't moved that night. They had. My mother and I met for coffee one morning. She looked different. Softer. Older. "I've been thinking a lot," she said. "About how I let things slide. I didn't rush her. When they told you to sit there," she continued, "I should have stood up." "Yes," I said gently. "You should have." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I won't do that again." I believed her. Not because she promised, but because she finally named the moment. And that mattered. Later that year, I hosted a small dinner of my own. No hierarchy. No labels. Just people I trusted. As we sat around the table, laughing, passing food, I felt something settle in my chest. Belonging. Not the kind that's assigned. The kind that's chosen. I realized then that family isn't the people who decide your place. It's the people who make room. And once you learn that, you never sit small again. Sometimes people ask how I stayed calm that night. How I didn't argue. How I didn't leave. I tell them the truth. I was tired of shrinking. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't embarrass anyone. I just let the truth be heard. And that was enough. Because the moment they tried to send me away was the moment they revealed everything. And I never sat at the kids' table again. Not anywhere. Not ever.